Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Immanuel 10 at 10. We are reading through the Bible using the 1 year chronological reading plan. This week we started the book of Joshua. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness um, and the death of Moses, the people were finally ready to enter the promised land with Joshua as their new leader. Joshua had big shoes to fill. But God encouraged him, telling him to be strong and courageous, for the Lord would be with him wherever he went. We hear that all the way through the book of Joshua. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear. I am with you. When the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant stepped into the Jordan River, God opened the waters and made a way for the people to cross on dry ground, just like their parents had crossed dry ground across the Red Sea. The surrounding nations heard about it and were terrified. When the Israelites entered the promised land, God stopped giving them manna, the food that had sustained them all the way through the wilderness. The people were probably glad not to eat manna anymore after 40 years of it. Joshua had the leaders of the tribe take 12 stones and place them as a memorial, um, so that anytime that their children saw these stones, they would retell the story of how God had been faithful to his promises. Joshua reestablished the covenant with the people, and then the commander of the Lord's army appeared to Joshua. And Joshua said, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And he replied, "Neither. But as the commander of the Lord's army, I have come. Take off your shoes, for you are standing on holy ground," just like Moses at the burning bush. Well, the first big challenge that Joshua faced was the huge fortified city of Jericho with enormous walls. The Israelites sent in some spies to find weaknesses in the city. They stayed in the house of Rahab, a prostitute living in Jericho. She lied and misdirected the soldiers who were looking for the Israelite spies. She hid the spies up on her roof and then helped them escape. To the people of Jericho, Rahab was a traitor, but to the Israelites, she was a hero. She saved the lives of the spies and gave them valuable information that helped them encourage the people. The Israelites were true to the promise they'd made with Rahab. They, when they saw the scarlet cord she had tied in her window, they spared her and her family. Eventually, Rahab became part of the Israelite family tree that led to King David, and much later to Jesus. She is one of the few foreign women listed in the genealogies of the Bible. God chooses the most unlikely people for his kingdom purposes. God gave the Israelites a strange battle plan. Their army was supposed to walk all the way around Jericho, blowing trumpets, but not shouting or saying a word. They were to do that for 6 days. And then on the seventh day, they were to march around the city 7 times and then shout, and the walls would fall down so that they could take the city. They had to trust God. Remember singing the song, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho and the walls came tumbling down? But it wasn't Joshua who fought, it was God. The people were to honor God by not taking any of the plunder from Jericho. But one man did, hiding some of the things in the ground under his tent. When they tried to next capture the city of Ai, the Israelites were completely routed. Eventually, they figured out who had taken some of the plunder, and so they had that man and his entire family put to death. And then they set an ambush for Ai. They made it look like they were going to come up and fight just the same way and then retreat. And then the men said of Ai said, they're retreating again. Let's go finish them off. But when they all stormed out of the city, the rest of the Israelites were behind and took the city. and then charged after those men. Well, the news of Israel's victories spread, and the men of Gibeon heard that God had given the Israelites the land. So they deceived the Israelites with a clever ruse. They dressed in really shabby clothes, and they took empty water skins and moldy bread with them, and they said, "We are people from a far distant country, and we've come all this way. See, look how worn out our clothes are, and how moldy our bread is. It was all fresh and new when we started, but we've heard about your God, and so we want to become your allies. Make a treaty with us." And it wasn't until afterwards that the Israelites found, oh no, these are the next door neighbors that we were supposed to conquer. And so they had the people of Gibeon become woodcutters and water carriers. And then the Israelites protected the Gibeonites when the kings of the surrounding towns tried to destroy them for allying themselves with Israel. Eventually, the Israelites captured many of the towns around there, including the city of Jerusalem, which would one day become their capital under King David. You have to admit, the book of Joshua is a bloody story. What do we make of these commands from God to completely wipe out the people living in the land? What kind of God sanctions genocide? In the description of this post, I give you a link to a video study from the Bible Project that we'll use this Sunday, entitled Joshua and Making Sense of Divine Violence. It points out that we have to see the book of Joshua in the wider story of God's faithfulness to his promises to Abraham. Even in Joshua, like with the story of Rahab, God is building a multi-ethnic family to bless and restore the world. Ultimately, the story of the Bible points beyond the bloody uh, violence of Joshua to Jesus, who is the culmination of God's purpose and plan. He takes our sin and violence into himself. He dies and rises as God's ultimate response to evil. Jesus is our true leader and moral guide. He's the beginning of the new creation. In his Walk Through the Bible series, Paul Tripp says, it's tempting to think of Joshua as being the hero of the book of Joshua. The book is named after him, but he's far from the hero. God is the hero of the book of Joshua and the whole Bible. In fact, Joshua's name actually means Yahweh saves. It's the shortened it's the shortened name, same name in Hebrew as the name Jesus. Joshua's name points to the need for a redeemer. It points to the coming of Jesus the Messiah. Like throughout the book of Joshua, God won't always work the way you expect him to work. He won't deliver his promises the way you expect. But take heart, you're not alone. That's always been the experience of God's people. You can't judge the goodness of God by your little interpretation of your present experience, because perhaps in that very difficult thing, God is doing something awesome, something you could never earn, you could never deserve, you could never achieve on your own. If you're God's child, you know that God gives and you receive. That's the theme of the book of Joshua, and that's the grace of the gospel. Well, I hope to see you on Palm Sunday as we begin Holy Week. Worship's at 8:30 and 10:45, with Sunday school and adult education in between at 9:45. On Wednesday night, Epic will meet at 6 o'clock with their pizza and their lesson time. And then on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, services will be at 7. Easter Sunday, we'll have the same worship schedule, 8:30 and 10:45, but there won't be Sunday school or adult class on Easter morning. All of our worship services, of course, are also available online. So have a great weekend. Great to be with you.